G'day guys, and welcome back to another episode of the Pumped On Property Show, where Ben and I open up a bit of a can of worms in relation to the coming GFC and how we can prepare for it. So we talk about the winner's curse and the mania phase, which we are currently in at the moment. And we talk about some of the feelings that people are experiencing at the moment. We talk about how assets have performed in the history and how they're performing right now. And we talk about what we're personally doing.
From there, we go into the next phase of the longer term cycle, which is the crash or the recession, and how people will be feeling then, what's historically happened to asset prices, and what Simon and I plan to do. And then from there, my favorite phase, which is the rescue or the recovery. Now, if you want to learn more about this, check out The Secret Wealth Advantage. Phenomenal book, but we go into a whole lot of detail today, and I'm looking forward to walking through it with you guys. Beautiful, bro. So if we look at the current phase of the cycle that we're in at the moment, which according to Phil Anderson and Akil would be called the winner's curse phase or the mania phase, there's three distinct ways that we wanted to break it up. There's kind of how people are feeling and how we're feeling at the moment. There's the history of asset prices, and we'll go into things like property, gold, stocks, and crypto. And then there's what we're personally doing at the moment as well. So let's talk about the key feelings that we're noticing from talking to sort of 30 to 40 investors a week at the moment.
I think the predominant feeling at the moment is FOMO, as well as a sprinkle of greed. And I think that that's kind of going to heat up as we continue through this phase of the cycle as well. But I think the predominant feeling at the moment is FOMO. Like, I have a fear of missing out. We've got declining interest rates, we've got stimulus packages galore, we've got mass immigration, we've got an undersupply of properties, and so everybody is just like, I missed it. You know, I miss Perth, I miss Brisbane, I miss Sydney, I missed Adelaide, I miss Townsville. You know, everyone's just like, what can I do to avoid being left behind? And, you know, I feel as though it's FOMO, but yeah, a little bit of a sprinkle of greed there as well, because people are just like, you know, I want to take advantage.
I think that's so important what you just mentioned, and it's not talked about enough. So where the FOMO is coming from is seeing your friend buy that home and that home doubling in value in the last 10 years, or seeing that friend go to Queensland or Perth early 5-6 years ago and seeing them double their money. And there was so much fear and uncertainty in the COVID market and then post-COVID, which for a lot of people, it sticks with them for some reason for longer than it should. It's like COVID financially was a very, very difficult 9 to 18 month period for most people. And then most people's wages jumped very significantly post that, and asset prices went nuts, but that fear stuck with people for 4 or 5 years.
Exactly.
And then the interest rates, just as things were like really taking off, they realized they were taking off and they ratcheted interest rates up.
Yeah.
And so that kicked like the can down the line for a lot of people for another 2 years.
And it was all because, like, you know, we had COVID, we already had low interest rates, but then they pulled them back even further to try and just create a softer landing. But what it actually did is cause this V-shaped recovery, where it was a short, sharp drop, then a short, sharp recovery because of the declining interest rates, because of the money printing, the quantitative easing that was happening. And so, you know, it just should have probably lasted a little bit longer, but it just never does in the mid-cycle slowdown, because the government is so quick to step in, and that's just that's what history suggests occurs every single mid-cycle slowdown. The banks and the government just step in immediately almost to try and make that recovery. And obviously it took a lot longer, especially for those who are working in like travel, tourism, hospitality, gyms. You know, one of our clients that we're working with at the moment, Jared, like, he works for a massive organization that helps gyms get set up, like Anytime Fitnesses and some of the best gyms around the country. And so, like, you know, he had like 18 months of just, you know, base wage, if not lower than that. But then all of a sudden it was like, as you were saying back then, it's like somebody's pulling the slingshot, and then bang, they let go.
Yeah, I like that. And, you know, other things are people are feeling pretty optimistic for the first time in a long time. Like, you can see that Roy Morgan ANZ score going up month on month at the moment, just creeping slowly up. Still not back at historical averages because there's still this uncertainty in the market, but there's optimism, and then there's a good amount of delusion right now as well. And that delusion is this is going to last forever.
And the delusion is like looking at Perth and going, okay, well, it's, gone up 90% over the last 5 years. It's going to go up 90% over the next 5 years. And it's just like history doesn't necessarily indicate that that is what's going to happen. So that's why you got to, learn, you got to study your history and go, okay, well, just because it's been a great 5 years there, it doesn't mean the next 5 years are going to be the same, because there was so many positive things happening for that market 5 years ago. But now you got to be spending $700,000, $800,000 for a quality property over there right now. And it's like, when that was 400, absolute great opportunity. But now that it's 800, it's more difficult to justify that.
Here's a few really real examples of delusion that I've seen lately, and it'd be cool for you to think about a few that you've talked to people about. So one is, I was helping my brother-in-law, just doing some labouring around the pool at my father-in-law's house, and the concrete driver rocks up. I think I told you this story, and he's like, I used to be a pilot because I'm just running the wheelbarrows or whatever. And we just got talking. He's like, what are you doing? I'm like, oh, I'm in the property game. And he's like, oh, yeah, I just sold my house. Actually, I made $1 million. And I just bought $1 million worth of gold from some dude up at Noosa. And I went, what? And he's like, yeah, I've been making 45% a year on gold for the last 2 years. And I sold my family home. Me and my family are renting now. And I've just bought all this gold. And I'm like, that is fucking crazy. And I said, have you looked at the gold charts running into the last GFC or during the GFC or after? He's like, no, I don't know anything about the history, but this is just going to keep going forever. Sold the family home. Another example of this is people, for example, coming into our business, right? That we were buying beachside properties in Brisbane 10, 11 years ago for $290K. Those properties are now worth if they were a good property where they paid $500 back then, they're now worth 1.3 mil. And people expecting that you went from 300K to 600 to 1.2. So effectively you've got a 200% return. That $1 million property now is going to go to 2 mil and then the 4 mil in the same period of time. It's just not going to happen unless wages go through the roof. We would need wages to literally triple for that to be realistic in Brisbane. And so it's the delusion that the past is going to immediately repeat is very dangerous at this stage.
Yeah, and I wonder, I guess it's hard for us to relate because we have done so much we've done so much learning of history, and we've studied these books and we've read them cover to cover multiple times. And when you do that, you start to realize, oh, cool, there is a clear real estate cycle. And when we look at the 46-year data from Homely year on year, you can clearly see after 4 to 5 years of double-digit growth, every single market either declines a little bit or sits flat for a little bit as well. So it is interesting that, that is a sentiment, that is a feeling that people have at this stage, because it's just never occurred ever in history. So why would this time it be different? But I guess, people just love a winner. People want to make money. People want to get out of their day jobs. People want to get rich quick. And, I guess they're hearing all these stories and they're like, if they can do it, why can't I do it?
If you're 20, 30 or early 40s, then the chance of the experience, the living memory of the GFC being really bad, I put my hand up and say, I was in uni between 2007 and 2011. I didn't even know there was a GFC.
No.
I'm not going to lie. I didn't even know I didn't know anything.
No.
And then when I started to buy property in Sydney and the Central Coast of New South Wales in 2011, everyone was saying, do not buy. Why would you buy? Because the 9 years leading up to that point, Sydney had done it had done less than 1% a year.
Yeah, it was shocking.
The Central Coast was even worse. I got driven around by an agent and saw 14 properties in one day up there. And he took me to 14 different open homes and there wasn't a single other person at one of them.
But you'd never inspected properties before. You don't know what it would have been 4 years earlier or 3 years earlier.
Idea. But these agents, because I was working on a Saturday for Ray White just to figure out what real estate was like. And he was still moving properties and things were starting to be okay again. But he's like, mate, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, there could have been 60 to 90 groups through every one of
Yeah,
these
wow.
homes. And then I was like, maybe getting one person through the door for him. So I didn't know any of that, but the living memory of anyone below my age, like I was even too young to experience it at like 24, 25 at that time. So
All I remember is like dad and mum talking about like their super getting smashed. That was the only sort of association I had with it at that point in time.
yeah,
But obviously, if you were, in that phase of life where you are investing and you are working and you did have a lot of super during that time, like there is a huge hangover. And we were talking about this off camera before, like even still up until like 2022, 2023, we were having, people that had migrated to Australia from the United Kingdom and Europe that had a real living memory of what happened back during the previous GFC in those countries. And they still have this like hangover of feeling, very, what we get to once we're in the crash phase, which is just like that fear, that panic, that, struggling to find the confidence again. You take a massive psychological hit when you lose so much money that you work so hard for, and when it just kind of comes out of nowhere as well, because the media won't tell you about it when it's going to come.
that's the interesting thing, man. Like we work with heaps of people from the UK, but particularly the people from Ireland haven't forgotten. And we work with heaps of South Americans where there's a lot of people. Some of those countries are cooked, Matt.
Yeah,
right now.
Venezuela especially.
But we work with clients from over there, and they don't forget these things because it's like
Nor
it's
should
very
we.
real. And so yeah, if we move from feelings, which is effectively greed, FOMO, delusion, optimism, into assets, so we don't even have to look back at history to look at what's going on right now. Like if you just want
It's
to take them through these numbers, it's absolutely out of control.
It's everything. Like everything has a good record. Like there's only a few property markets that look undervalued right now, but everything looks up. So property's going up, 5 to 25%, depending on where you're looking at the moment. Most of those like high 20+% markets are sort of like the regional towns that are attached to mining in Queensland and Western Australia. And then you've got gold that was up 38% over the past 12 months as well, on an absolute tear. Like that's gold. The longer term average is what, like 6 to 8%. And then crypto's up 110%, 111% for Bitcoin over the last 12 months as well. Like, come on.
That's incredible.
Stocks up, 18% plus as well, depending on what you're investing in as well. And so it's just everything is at all-time new highs. Everything is breaking records. Like
Silver broke its all-time high literally last week.
But if you look at like the real economy, according to Phil Anderson, it is tracking sideways and even starting to decline in some areas as well, which means that like this is imminent, what is coming at the moment, which is why we obviously want to have a bit of a chat about it. So you just got to be really cautious about what you're choosing to do at the moment, and not having this delusion that it's going to keep going at the rates that it has been.
I think something that you said off camera, which was really cool, is, and it's from Phil in the last few weeks, it's like the real economy is flat, or the real economy is actually cracking and going down. But the, let's just call it the speculative economy, like if you look at the AI stocks, or some of the
Crypto.
stocks in the NASDAQ, or crypto, or gold, or silver, or property prices, like I caught up with Justin, one of our clients who's an absolute legend, in the last couple of days, and he said to me, should I hold this property, should I not? I just jumped online and I went, it's gone up 18% or 13% in the last year. In the last quarter, it's gone up 10%. This is a property on the Sunshine Coast near the hospital in Batinia. And I just kind of looked at it and I was thrown away. But another example of this is like a couple of weeks ago, I tried to buy a property for a client. 174 groups in 3 days, 54 offers, and the place was online for $695 and it sold for $805.
That's just wild.
In terms of, oh, sorry to interrupt you, but in terms of that stimulus, so I just found out through Clay, one of the brokers we work with, that these government-backed loans are coming through on the 1st of October. 5% deposits is all you and me need, and the government will pay the rest of the deposit to the bank for you.
I don't even know if this has ever happened in the past.
I don't know either.
I don't think so. Not in our living memory. You've been doing this for 15 years as well.
Definitely not in my memory, but maybe back after
in
the
the
war
80s
or
or
something.
something like that, or back then. But it's, and, you know, we've worked with a lot of first home buyers over the years, and, you know, super fortunate for young first timers who had parents that were willing and able to go guarantor for them. But that's a very small percentage of first home buyers. Now the government's going to back that for you. They're going to pay your LMI and they're going to guarantee
the guarantor. That's exactly
But
what it is.
if you read the fine print, if you default on your loans, the government takes that land off you.
Yeah, and the government also isn't doing this for nothing. They'll take 15% of the capital gains, like
When
the
you
resale.
sell.
I'm assuming, like
That's
they're
the
not
plan.
they're not just giving this cash out.
But I think what we got to realize at this stage, and this is something that I try and remind, you know, friends, family, clients of, is let's just hypothetically assume that they didn't introduce these stimulus packages for the first home buyers, that they weren't letting 500,000 plus people into the country every single year, that they didn't decide to reduce the cash rate. Like, if those three things didn't happen, where would we be right now?
We're in recession.
100%.
This is all, as Phil would
Artificial.
say, kicking the can down the road. This globally, it's requiring more and more and more stimulus to keep this false show on the road.
Because nobody wants to be the guy in power
No.
when shit hits the fan.
And I think that's really important what you just said. Like, I think, you know, if you just take a step back and actually theoretically think about what you just said, rates have come from 7, they'll be at 5% shortly.
Mine's already at 5.7%.
Same, like 5.8% interest only now. So if I was paying P&I, I'd be getting way better rates. And then they're still printing a shitload of money. They're just not telling everyone they are anymore. Asset prices are going ballistic, and how many crypto millionaires or people that have done well in crypto are bringing it back to property now?
Of course.
Then you've got the tax rate just dropped.
Mm-hmm.
You've got the 500,000 people a year moving in. You've got a chronic undersupply of property in some markets around the country, and some markets like Perth, for example, are building way too much shit and they're going to be oversupplied. You've got these first time, like the 5% thing. You've also got the government has just lifted the first home buyers grant across the entire country.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say in Queensland it was 600 or 700k, it's and now going to be a mil from the 1st of October. In Victoria, it's going to 900k. You don't just get free stamp duty, which is a massive barrier to entry.
Mm-hmm.
You also get no LMI paid, which is absolutely crazy. And then if you're only having to put 5% down, like when I started in 2011 as an investor, 2.5% deposits, free stamp duty, no LMI.
Yeah.
Like this is just, they either pump it at the beginning of the cycle or they pump at the end when there's no juice left. If Australia, based on these books from these guys,
It's all the first home buyers too.
if Australia didn't have 500,000 people moving in a year, and they didn't have a stable government with all of this beautiful stuff under the ground that we are selling way too cheap to the rest of the world, in my opinion. And I'd love to see the government take ownership of all of that, and it goes back to the Australian economy.
I love that.
But I don't think they're going to buy it back from these private companies. I don't think they're going to want to let them go.
That's going to be tough.
But, you know, those things, like when you look at what happened to the UK, the booms and busts in the UK and America are so much more severe than Australia in the past, because they don't have population growth like we do, and they don't have the stuff that they're selling under the ground that we do to prop them up.
Even though they are letting in too many people, at least they're pretty good people a lot of the time.
Very
you know,
high income earners,
I know
educated now.
that's going to be a pointy subject for a lot of different people, but like we don't have the same level of asylum seekers and refugees coming into Australia that you see in America and into Europe. You know, we do have skilled workers that are coming in to contribute to the economy, to pay tax. And, you know, whilst it's easier now than it has been in years past, it's still a challenge to become an Australian citizen as well, and takes time and money. And because we're this island nation so far away from the rest of the world, it's so damn hard to get here.
So I want to say something.
Plus on that as well, sorry to interrupt, but one last thing there before we move on is I've mentioned this a few times, Australia attracts the second most millionaires every single year than any other country in the world outside of the United Arab Emirates, UAE.
Wow,
So
they're all just going there to get tax-free.
they're going there to get tax-free, but they're coming to Australia to pay 46 cents in the dollar, but it's for the lifestyle, the culture, the community, the lifestyle that you can get in Australia.
I really like that. Like, I think if we sort of look at like what you and I are doing right now, which is the third thing we want to talk about until we move into the actual crash and recession, which is what we'll talk about next. I think I've sold 6 or 7 properties in the last 3 years. So if I even take it back a level and go, I read this book and I read another book and another book, and I'm just a pest. So I just reached out to Phil until like I understood enough to protect our family. You know what I mean? And I really like the guy. Like, if I could catch up with him every week, it would be a dream come true. And I'm a skeptic of all of this stuff that we're talking about now, because they call it the 18.6 year cycle, but sometimes it's 17 years, sometimes it's 24. So we don't know what's going to happen here, but
if it was like clockwork, it wouldn't exist. And that's what Phil says as well.
Yeah.
It's not going to exist if it was perfectly 18 and a half years every single time. So there's got to be a bit of a buffer, because people would just be able to accurately predict it and time it if it was like clockwork. So naturally.
So when my belief changed from a healthy skeptic to a maybe there's something in this was 18 months before what we'd call now the mid-cycle slowdown, and that would be labelled as COVID,
2020,
the dot-com boom bust, or 9/11.
Yep, 2001.
So before that, it was the high interest rates in the 80s and the craziness there. And before that, it was called the Cuban Missile Crisis, like when the world was going to blow itself up, right? So there's this triggering event, and then there's this panic in the market. And there's panic in the markets because we all know that we're over speculating right now. We all know.
And it's close enough to the previous end of cycle recession as well. So there's a real living memory, because people are still working, people are still investing, people are still in the market at that time.
Yeah. So, 18 months before COVID, Phil, in his boom bust bulletin, was like, we're 18 months away. We're 12 months away. We're 6 months away. Do this or do that. And then when I looked back, 18 months, he called it to within 1 week. And I'm still a healthy skeptic, but what it enabled me to do is go, Mum, this guy is, I don't know anything about this, but he reckons that stocks are going to take a 35 to 40% bath, maybe more than that, for a temporary period of time. And at your stage of life, he would be saying, maybe go into cash in your stocks for a moment, pay your capital gain on it, and then buy the bottom. Now, our mum actually took that advice and did that.
On that, she also had a really good financial advisor at the time who agreed, which was very interesting, and probably one of the first times that we'd experienced that from a financial advisor.
Yeah, the financial advisor actually just let her take the money into cash and then reinvest it when she was ready, which was beautiful. And it was after that I went, what's he missing? What am I missing? And so this was when I got more serious about my relationship with the author of The Secret Life, Real Estate and Banking. I read everything they say now. I put out like their weekly or monthly newsletter, their boom bust bulletin. We're fully subscribed to him. Any video that comes out, I watch, and then just questions via email when I'm like, and anytime he's here, we try and like go catch up with him and have a beer or dinner and actually like hit him up. And so I went, this is really interesting. And at this point, and I suppose why I'm saying this is the us thing right now, every single ounce of my body is feeling FOMO right now. I don't feel any delusion because I know enough about the history, but I feel so much FOMO to the point where I almost bought 500k worth of physical silver a couple of weeks ago from this guy up at Noosa. And so,
burying it in the backyard.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't...
You'll be like that kid from Stand By Me that's trying to find his little coins under the house. Like, God, can't find it.
Yeah. I'm sure it's under that avocado tree somewhere.
Your dog's dug it up.
And then I'm like, why the fuck would I buy physical silver when I can buy the code online for like, without paying 5% on the way in and the way out? But anyway, this is how much FOMO I've been feeling. And then...
That'd be heavy too.
And there's nothing wrong with feeling it, but in my opinion, Sydney, Canberra, Hobart, Adelaide, Perth, and parts of Brisbane are fully priced. And in my opinion, Darwin and parts of Melbourne look phenomenal still.
Yeah, and I would also say most regional markets in New South Wales, Queensland, Western Australia, South Australia, Tasmania, are at the same place, and even parts of Melbourne as well. Like if you're like, I still like Geelong and Mornington Peninsula and Melton, and even Ballarat. But that's just because Victoria's just like had such a shocking 6 or 7 year run now that everything looks affordable down there.
Which, you could say it's COVID, but it was also the
Timing.
fact that it had 120% growth after the GFC in a very short period of time, and it did its thing. It just went, this is really high. We're going to buy Sydney for a while. Now Sydney's really high. Now we're going to buy a bit of Brizzy. Because in the last GFC, I think Melbourne, we've worked out from like about this time to a couple of years into the recovery phase, it did it very well, like 40 odd % plus. So what I'm doing personally is I've gone interest only on all of my home loans. Yes, I'm paying more. That's not for everyone. This is certainly not advice. That's just me.
Yeah.
I've set offset accounts on all of them. I've set the loans back to 30 years so I can give myself the smallest amount. What I'm doing there is protecting my downside risk, because leading into the last GFC at this time, beautiful, low interest rates. When we got there and the world freaked out, they moved rates up 22 times in 18 months. So they're pulling them down to pull them back up. That's all they're doing right now.
Yeah.
And give us all a little bit of grace before they know they know what's coming.
Maybe, maybe not.
Yeah, so they can see the fundamental cracks in the economy. Hopefully, I don't know, but anyway, so that's what I'm doing from that perspective. I'm also saving some money. I'm also getting rid of some of the properties that have doubled in value for me, that I just will continue to grow. That's more because I wanted to get rid of some of the debt on my own home, versus if I didn't have debt on my own home, then I would have kept them for sure.
Yeah.
And I'm certainly not encouraging anyone to go sell assets that are going to double in 15 or 20 years' time. It's just, for me, I didn't want to go into this next GFC with $2 million debt on my own home, just in case rates do go to 7 to 8% and my business slides for a while.
Exactly. And this is the thing, like this is just our personal plan, because we have read the books, we have talked to the authors, we have studied the cycle, we have studied the history, and it's like, well, when or you feel as though like you got to take action on it. So like when we say this is our plan, like you got to figure out your own plan.
Yeah,
like read the books, study the books, do the work that we've done, because there's one of two options, right? You either educate yourself and exploit the cycle, or you ignore the information and you get taken advantage of. Like that's really the two options that you've got at the moment. You can't bury your head in the sand, and like if feels wrong, if history doesn't repeat itself, like I'd prefer to be prepared.
Cautious,
Like
yeah.
what's the saying I've been using recently? I think you told me this one. I prefer to be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war.
100%.
And it's like, obviously that's a martial arts term, but at the end of the day, like if you transfer that to investing, it's like, well, you'd prefer to know and not need it rather than need it and not know.
Without a doubt. And I think, in rhythm and flow, like T.I. says that, like, prepare for the next opportunity.
Yeah.
And so this opportunity is coming whether we want to acknowledge it or not. We just don't know when or how or what it's going to look like.
And the cool thing for me, like I'm 32, turning 33 soon, and I've got like a full half a cycle on you. You're 7 years older than me, so my plan is very different. Like I've sold 2 properties in the last 12 months, so I am consolidating. I will sell another property within the next 12 months as well. I've got not a lot of crypto, but a decent amount of crypto. And I'll be selling that, and I really don't know when. Like that is a complex question. Luckily, our colleague and friend Hayden, he's kind of so deep into that space at the moment that I'll just follow his recommendations. And I've got a few mates and a few clients that are really into that space as well. So I'll just like lean on my team of advisors with the stuff that I don't know about. But then for my family, me and my wife Taylor, we're both with Host Plus Super. That's just because of the recommendations from the Barefoot Investor. It's cheap, it's reliable, and you get the illusion of control, I guess, in Host Plus.
The thing you can do with Host Plus is you can flick your stocks into cash.
Yeah, you can, exactly. But I'm not going to do that. I'm gonna give it a crack because I'm 32. I've still got another 1.5 cycles at least left in me. Like, I've got so long, and it's like if you bought a property at the peak of the cycle in Sydney in 2004, 2005,
Still gone up 200%. And if
like,
you bought a
time
stock
heals
at the
everything.
absolute top of the last cycle, you've still done 300% growth.
That's it. So,
This is important. So this is where our life cycle stages plus personal temperaments really differ. And then I
absolutely.
think it's really important because there's people that are just, if you had have said this to me, like I've done 19 properties, to be sitting in this position now, going, you're doing this, like my 30-year-old version of myself,
Yeah.
I think from your age till now, I think I did 11 more properties.
That's it. Yeah.
So it's like I was very high risk with an extremely low risk appetite.
Yeah, you only had, one kid at the time, maybe two. So different situation. I've got one kid at the moment. Like, I don't have all of these dependents. I don't have the high debt position on my principal place of residence. Like, that's why it's individual, right?
And so what I would say is, for me, I've set up the self-managed super fund. So let's say that the average crash, which we'll talk about in a moment, stocks go down 30 to 60%. Now, again, I'm not saying, we know the history. You miss the top 8 days in the last 30 years and your returns on your stocks would be 4% per year lower. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know if that's right, but something like that in Money Master the Game. Time in the market is better than time out. But for me, I've gone into super. Right now, that money is just getting set up through CommSec, and I'll just personally be in a combination of silver, gold, and stocks until the top. I'll keep it in the silver and gold for a little while. And then for me, I might leverage that into property, I might not. But let's say the decline is 50%, right? A 50% decline is a lot on your money. If you've got 400K in your super, it's 200K, right? But the problem that people don't see is a 50% decline requires 100% gain. And so it's not that I'm that stressed about not having that money halve. It doesn't feel like my money anyway. I'm so far away from retirement age. I don't want to go from where I am today to 5 years from now just to get back to the same level. And so for me, my intention with that is either to go into property as leverage in super, which is a way better return for me at this age than I can get on unleveraged stocks, or it's to, trust something that's worked extremely well for me to date. Like, since I found this cycle, man, like everything, the returns for our clients has quadrupled. Like, it's been so much better.
Our understanding of timing and the cycle has just been incredible.
So if I talk about what I'm going to do, I'm in cash in super. I'm waiting to get my CommSec account set up. I'll be in silver and gold because have a look at the charts between 2005 and 2012 and you'll see why I'm thinking that way. I don't know anything about them. Then I will cash in. I'll buy the stocks when they're 50 cents in the dollar instead of losing 50 cents in the dollar. And between 2009 and 2012, stocks in the last cycle doubled. So it's like if I could make, theoretically, like this is my plan at the moment, 100% between now and the top. That's crazy to say, but with what I'm trying to do, then I cash
It's more
out.
like between now and the real bottom, right?
Now on the bottom, is a way better way.
Yep.
Now on the top, that's not going to happen at all. No. But now on the bottom, like if you see what people did when the stock market failed last time, they went rushing into commodities.
And the other thing is why you're saying this for yourself personally as well is, like, as we said, like, we're 13 years in right now, and history suggests it's on average 14, but it could be 13, but it could be 17. Like, we could still have
COVID
a lot more. So
time.
you can't do nothing. You got to do something because, like, we don't know how much longer there is to go.
Exactly. And yeah, then I wait for the stocks to bottom and then I go. And so I suppose right now for me is a big stage of consolidation. I'm extremely low risk. Like my accountant's their firm's got 3,000 active clients and he's like, you are the most conservative person I've worked with in 20 years. Like that's That's
Is that a
just my,
compliment?
it's not a compliment at all. He's like, you should be taking way more risk than leverage. But I am prepared to do that. I'm just waiting for the time.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, you don't need to be, as you said, you don't want to be the richest man in the graveyard. Like, you just want to be able to reduce your stresses, you know, be a present father, like, have good times with your family. And, like, you know, the opportunity cost loss is the opportunity cost loss. It's like, we both missed Bitcoin in the early years when we probably could have got in.
I've
Like,
still missed the 100% the last year that you've got.
it is what it is, you know, at the end of the day. But my super plan is the exact same on a different level. I'll still stick with Choice Plus because it's a lot cheaper than managing a self-managed super fund.
Yeah, it is.
So I'll probably just stick with that. And then, yeah, exact same plan, like silver, gold, until, you know, until I really, all I'm going to be doing is subscribing to Phil's work,
So it
paying
says
for
buy.
paying for the property share market economics, the full level. I can't remember exactly what it's called, and just being like, okay, cool, this appears to be the bottom. And I've just taken the advice of much smarter, much more experienced people, really.
In COVID, he just said, wait. And then he just said, just one email came out, buy. That was
But
as simple as it is.
my I am also going to take a punt personally, and I am going to buy another investment property as well, down in Victoria, down in Melbourne or in Geelong, or in the Mornington. I'm not 100% sure yet, but that'll happen before the end of 2025.
Yeah.
I will get into the market down there, because when I've studied history, in the last two real estate cycles, Melbourne property prices increased through the crash and through the recovery as well. In fact, in the last two cycles, it was Australia's top performing metro market. And I don't look into regional markets and things like that, so I just am looking at the big ones. But, you know, I just have a feeling that history, this is me personally, that history is repeating itself. And there's a few things to this. So when the crash happens, properties may be cheaper than what they are right now, but they're probably going to be more expensive based on what I personally feel. Second to that is, at that time, I am not going to be able to get a loan from the banks to be able to buy the property.
It's true.
And I'm not going to be able to have the conviction or the justification to use the amount of cash that will be required at that time, because I'll prefer to use that cash for stocks. So it's like, I'm getting in today with the hope and the belief that it will be worth more in the crash than it is today. And I won't be able to get in at that point in time. So I don't want to have to wait until I will be able to justify getting in, and then I will very likely pay more than what it's worth today. So
That's a really, really good point, because we don't talk about that. But if we start sliding into the crash now, you know, talking to one of our clients who works for one of the largest owners of privately held property in Australia right now as their lead buyer's agent, he gets us to buy his properties. I love that over here. But he said last time, I said, what happened? Like, what actually happened? And he said the banks just wouldn't lend us money for 18 months. Just flat out. And Phil said the same thing. Like, Phil was all excited to go on the undervalued opportunities in Melbourne, and then he couldn't find any. Melbourne just kept going ballistic, so they're super cheap.
In 2008, or I think it was either 2008 or 2009, property values went up 27% in Melbourne in 1 year. The following year they dropped by 13, so it was pretty manageable when you factor in the 2-year return, but still.
It's crazy. And, you know, the thing that Melbourne has going for it, which, like, if you look back at the historical average around about that last crash, how many people coming into the country, let's just call it 250 to 300,000 a year. In that 18 to 24 month period when the whole world was sinking, they let 950,000 people in. So if they're letting 500,000 in now and we're not in a crash, would they just let 800,000 people in for 2 years straight, 1.6 million, and just flood the market with extra people? That's what we can do here, because we're nowhere near at our capacity. But in England and in America, they just won't do that anymore. And there's so much public outrage in those two countries if they do that it just doesn't work.
Absolutely. So, like, once you get to the peak and then the crash, the feelings that most people are experiencing is fear, panic, pain. This is going to last forever, and frustration is what we wrote down there as well. and panic probably being the most prevalent emotion at that point in time.
So there's the old saying, like I'm sure most people have heard it, like the old things in the olden days, the run on the banks. And that's where people like you and I lose faith in the banking system because like Lehman Brothers or who was some of Bear Stearns goes under.
Bear Stearns, Lehman.
And they go, is my money actually safe here? And now that it's a digital money as well, it's like a fucking scary as. Especially with the bail-in, which we won't talk about, but Google that. They did it in Greece to see if the world would accept it in the last GFC.
Yeah, right.
It fucked that whole country for a long time till now. It's still fucked.
Yeah, well, it's now just really tourism.
Yeah. And so like this idea of like we lose trust in our financial system because stocks have just gone down 30-40%, or stocks have just gone down 20-30%.
And they've cranked interest rates back on us as well.
Interest rates are back up. And then it's like if you've got an interest only loan and you go to the bank and the bank goes and you're trying to flick it to another 5 years interest only, they're like, no, it's principal and interest now. Or if you put down 5% deposit and the property value's gone down 20%, you might just happen to get a call because the bank's in negative equity.
Pay the difference.
You might not get a call. In America, you'd get a call because the banks are trying to bring all the money they can in. And it might be better for them to foreclose your property and to sell it for more than you can actually repay on it. But in Australia, if you're paying your loans, you're generally okay. But there's been instances in the last 200 years in Australia where you get a call from what you thought was your friendly bank manager saying, hey, 5% now. And that's a fucking scary place to be in. I don't think that will happen as long as you keep paying your loans. But what if you don't keep paying your loans? Like I just signed a loan for my new home. The paperwork is terrifying.
It is.
Like it's like if you stop paying, this is fucking our property and we'll sell it for whatever we can get for it. And after that, hopefully you can sell it for what you owe. But if you can't,
it's ours.
You know, in the last GFC, right?
And it's like worst case scenario, like, you know, doom and gloom. And, you know, we obviously weren't invested in the previous cycle as well. So we don't have a living memory of what actually happened either.
What I know, though, is 1 in 3 properties in Noosa was sold by the public trustee or the banks as mortgagee in possessions. That's a fact. Like, what I know is that the main street between where you live and Point Cartwright on the Sunshine Coast went down 60%. What I know is that people that were paying $1.6 million for houses couldn't sell them for $700K on that street. This is, you know, your Sydneys, your Melbournes, your outer Brisbanes, your outer ring suburbs don't fare too bad. You know, your current, like the more affordable areas, but it's your premium properties and it's your holiday homes and it's your Airbnbs and it's the luxury stuff. It's the 200, like let's call it 30,000 homes on the Sunshine Coast that are currently, or 10,000 homes on the Sunny Coast, 10,000 homes in the Mornington Peninsula, where it's like, that's just the luxury. But now my business is failing and it's my home or this one, that one. Oh, there's no one to sell it to.
You know, Phil says it's the non-rent producing assets. So it's like if you've got art, you know, and you've got like bottles of wine, or you're a collector of something, you've got like a holiday home, you know, if it's not producing an income, that's going to be the first thing to go. And they're going to be the things that have the biggest declines. And he says with the stock market as well, it's like everything's going to drop. And history suggests that the stock market goes down between 35 to 60%. Everything drops, but then the organizations, the companies, the industries that lead the new cycle and also have good balance sheets and have incredible income are going to rebound nice and quickly as well.
Yeah, so I was at IBM. At the time in 2011, there was 500,000 people, and in the first 6 months, they sacked 200,000 people.
Wow.
Gone. Like if you, at that time, I was looking at, because the first time I was earning good money in my life, after I left IBM, I was I was just on a good thing with the solar. Like I was way too young, but I was probably earning 150, 200 grand a year. And as you do as a kid, I was looking at like crazy cool cars. And I was looking at a
Jetta,
an Aston Martin at the time. And the Aston Martins that were selling for 415K were online. I could buy them for 85K.
Oh man, that's wild.
I was walking around the boat, like the little harbour in Rockhampton and Yeppoon, sorry, there were $2 million yachts for sale on the street there for 70K. I drove into Emerald at the time. The main street of Emerald had about 200 cars down the media strip like this. Brand new BMWs, brand new Rangers when the mining boom ended, for sale for like 15K.
Wow.
100, 200 grand cars. Like I just want to get this through. It's not the fucking drop in your fake money that matters. It's not the drop in your property that you're going to hold for 15 years. It's not the drop in the stocks that matters. It is, as you said, it is when you lose your job and there's no new job that crushes people. It's when you have something that you could sell now. You can go sell the place in Brisbane now to anyone. You'll probably get 54 offers and you'll probably get out of it a dream. But what happened in COVID, which was nowhere near as bad, is you and I walked around Brisbane for 9 months, didn't see a single other human at the open homes. And it wasn't because of the lockdown laws. It was because there wasn't a fucking buyer in the whole city for 9 months.
Yeah.
You and I got assets for 40% cheaper at that time. Like I got land that was worth 600K for like 345.
Yeah, my house as well. Like so damn cheap.
And then it bumped. And this is the other thing.
Turned around real quick in the mid-cycle.
The important thing is it does turn around here too, but it's like I just really want to get through to people. The reason Ben's being such a bitch at the moment and really harping on about this is I don't want to see a single client or a single person that listens to this not know about it and accidentally get strung out because they've just gone and leveraged up to the hill now because it all feels good. Like this will not last. We cannot see, maybe in crypto, 100% returns a year is the normal. But maybe in everything else in the world, there has to be a ceiling on like what someone can pay for a house in Sydney.
And if this happens, you know, the reason that you want to know now, 2 to 4 years in advance, is because like that just sounds like an incredible opportunity. You know,
imagine you had 100 grand cash and you could get $1 million worth of cars.
These joints that are selling on beachside, Watala and Kawana and Badina at the moment for $2.5 to $3 million. Like the thought of being able to go and buy that for $1.5 mil is just like a dream come true. Like I'm not a car guy, but man, if I could go buy a Mercedes GLC for freaking $50,000, give it to me. You know what I mean? Like it just sounds like an opportunity. And I shouldn't be speaking like this. I'm just a natural optimist and I know this stuff so well that like to me it's an opportunity, but I think you're communicating in the right way in the sense that like we should realize that this is going to be the worst time that anybody has ever experienced.
You know,
unemployment rates will go up. Like
you and I used to say this in the 18 months leading into COVID when we were doing all those videos, and anyone that wants to go back and watch them, we were saying exactly this then when the whole world was like, it's beautiful. It's like, it is beautiful. Like, fuck yeah, all of our properties have just gone up 20%. Like, happy days. I'm very, very grateful. It's the opportunity is so big, but you can only have the opportunity if you're prepared for it. And
that's it.
Preparation requires being in a very safe financial position. And we're very exposed to real estate, so there'll be days when the phone doesn't ring. Instead of getting 97 people reach out last month to work with us and taking on 2 to 3 or 4 a week, could be crickets for 6 months. Like that's a real thing.
Exactly. And you also just mentioned what you're maybe planning on doing, like, you know, maybe going for stocks at the bottom of the crash as opposed to real estate because it may be too hard to buy real estate at the time. I'm
just going for Aston Martins, bro. I just want to, no, I'm joking.
I'm going for really nice whiskey. No.
So I'm moving to full blown leverage on the right properties.
Yeah.
If that comes up, and if it doesn't come up, then it doesn't come up. That's completely cool. Then I'll know I've got another 14 years of growth ahead of me and I'll go for property again anyway.
But we'll know then. Like, we'll know, okay, how far did the Sunshine Coast drop? How far did the Gold Coast drop? How far did these, like, tourist Mornington Peninsula, like, how far did these places drop? And then, you know, do I see value on that? And that's to be determined. Like, until we know what happens, we won't know what the best plan of attack is going to be at that point in time.
So in the last 3 cycles, you remember when we went down the Goldie and saw Phil and he had that incredible chart, and it was the 14 years up on average for the averaged out over the last 3 cycles, so 60 years worth of data per capital city. And we just went, whoa, that's insane returns. We're talking between 120 and 200%, depending on the capital city in Australia growth, which we've seen in everywhere but Melbourne and Darwin. And then he did the same thing for like the 4 year, we call it 4 years down, but really it's like COVID, the bottom is hit way before the feeling is gone. And the opportunity is actually as it's going down, not when it's down. But yeah, so he said that the Sydney and Melbourne markets on average had come down about 8% plus inflation, so maybe 12 to 15% on average in the last 3 downturns, and Brisbane and Perth had done about 12% down plus inflation, so maybe 16 to 18% on average. But the thing here isn't what is the sunny coast going to do, or what's Sydney going to do, or what's Melbourne going to do. The thing is, when that individual buyer that's over leveraged, who's in a bad financial position, needs to sell, and Sydney's only gone down 5%, but that individual property in Bondi, because that guy's fucked, has gone from 5 mil to 2, is where the opportunity is. And that's, I've seen it with $1 Million Listing New York, right? There was a group of lawyers and barristers in New York, in Brooklyn, in the last GFC, who were the lawyers writing the foreclosed properties. They bought a mansion in New York is 20 feet wide. Like, that's what they deem a mansion to be in Brooklyn. So it's like, it doesn't sound like much in Australia. There could be 7 or 8 stories high without a lift.
Yeah.
But these walk-up mansions, this group of solicitors had, I think it was 60 or 100 of them. And he had written it up. And the crazy thing about it, it was 6 months before the mid-cycle slowdown that he was selling all of them, because New York, like Sydney, does about 120% in the first part of the cycle. So it was just crazy to see. I was just watching it.
If you're in the know, what you can get access to.
If you know.
Yeah. And that's going to be difficult as well to figure out who to talk with. And obviously we've got great relationships with real estate agents. That'll definitely help. But building a relationship with the public trustee and, having a relationship manager at a big bank like Westpac or ANZ or whatever it may be, to be like, hey man, like, flick us these deals.
So in 2011, when I was still catching up with like 3 people a week to learn from them, I found I was doing this project management course at night, and one of the dudes there was in the Woolaware Yacht Club, and he introduced me to it because I was asking everyone, like, who do you know that's balling out? I went and caught up with this dude. He was actually the owner of the entire Wanda development. Like, he was the actual physical owner, but it was 2011. He obviously couldn't sell the stuff, and he couldn't get a single dollar to develop it.
I remember that time as well, where it kind of just stagnated for a little bit there, and then obviously this is the story.
He couldn't borrow money, so Wanda was like proposed.
It was ready, yeah.
Thank fuck he didn't sell it then, because obviously he sold it for a fortune after it. But I was catching up with him and we became friendly. So the whole time I was living in Sydney during that period of time, I'd go and catch up with him once every 2 weeks and just bug the shit out of him. And I'm like, I didn't know how big Wanda was at that point. Like, that is one of the most insane projects that's ever been done on Sydney beaches in the last 30 years. And I'm catching up with him thinking, oh, he's got a few blocks in Wanda. And he said to me, I said, well, what are you doing? And he's like, for income to maintain this land loan, I actually went to a bank. They've got access. I think they own 2,000 or 3,000 residential properties. And his job was to go to each of those properties, because the bank's balance sheet was so bad, organize a basic cosmetic or structural reno on them to get the yield up so that the bank could afford to keep them and not flog them off at that time.
How many houses would have been on it back then? Stuff all right.
On Wanda?
I
don't know. I can only remember it being
a hill, yeah.
Hill.
There was nothing there, right?
There was nothing there.
Yeah.
But it was interesting to see like the different way people survive. And I'm like, that was the first time I'm like, okay, so you can organize a meeting. If you're doing volume like we do, like 100 to 200 buys a year, I can guarantee that we will be able to go talk to someone. Same as COVID, I used to say 18 months before, for those small number of people that can buy, that have the stomach for it, I will have a relationship with CBA or Macquarie Bank. And when they've got people, right, that are defaulting on properties and the value of that property is $1 million, and that person only owes 400K on it, but they're still defaulting, the bank only needs to clear the debt
To get the
because the
balance
bank
sheets
is
looking
trying to
better.
clear the debt. They're not trying to make money, they're trying to
Okay.
clear the debt. And so that's what you and I will be spending 2 years walking
Yeah.
around, finding
Door
those
knocking.
relationships.
Yeah. It's coming.
It's crazy, and it's just like, yeah, it's just something to know. It's fucking exciting. It is exciting, and I used to say this during COVID. I'm like, we were always saying I'm trying to separate the health thing because so many people's lives ended and suffered and families were destroyed. It's so physically sad. What's sad about this as well is people's financial lives. You know, if you're at 50 to 70 and you're relying on your super and your super could halve maybe for a small window, that's horrible. Like, it took people 12 years to come back to what they'd lost. Like,
And
but it
but
is the best investment opportunity that anyone listening to this will have in the next 20 years.
but at the end of the day, there is a recovery. The
Let's get positive again. Let's go.
that like the banks come, the governments come, and they
Clear
rescue
the
the
book.
system. They clear the books. Like, just watch the last 5 minutes of The Big Short, and like where you've got Steve Carell's character, who's just like having a bit of a rant, and then Brad Pitt's character as well having a bit of a rant about just like nobody, no, like nothing happens. Like the bank, the government, the banks just bailed everybody out. Slap on the wrist. I think one dude went to jail
Banking.
in big banking over in the United States as a bit of a scapegoat. But then, there's a bailout program that occurs, and it's like in the last one in Australia, it was huge stimulus packages for first home buyers that you got to utilize.
That's coming again for sure.
But as you said, like all of these things come before the feelings change. So the feeling is still fear. It's still like heartbreak. It's still I'm seeing my super and it's 30 to 50% less than what it was a few years ago, and you're 5 years away from retirement, and it's just like, oh my god, like I've got to push my retirement out another 5 years or so now because I've been hurt. I've been cut by this crash, but then there's obviously hope, and there's a little bit of optimism that returns, especially for the younger generations and the younger investors that do have a long time horizon in front of them as well. And then this is where hopefully we can all get back into real estate and really start pumping it, and hopefully at that point in time we've done quite well through in Melbourne and Victoria, and then can maybe start to pivot into New South Wales, because like history suggests that Sydney and Central Coast and Newcastle and Wollongong and maybe even Shoalhaven have a really good run in the first half of the real estate cycle.
Yeah, like with the data that you and I have, I've been watching, even since we bought that, the 10-year growth rates in Wollongong, Newcastle, Central Coast, Sydney were sitting at 8 to 12%, and now a lot of them are sitting at 8 to 6%. So we're getting to the point where like it capped out. It's not coming down. It's just there's not these outlier years where it did 30% in 2015 and 25% in 2016 in the data set. And so it's averaging itself out, and it's allowing the market to rebalance. And the opportunity, regardless of what type of investor you are, so I'm a property investor for only one reason: leverage. If I didn't get leverage on property, then I wouldn't be an investor in property, because it is a expensive hobby / investment strategy to have, like land taxes, stamp duty, capital gains taxes,
Agent fees.
agents, management rates, water insurances. It's just the government is always going to try and grab as much of the gains of property as we'll let them have. And so it's just like that. It's just an expensive place to be in, but
It's just more money in real estate than any other asset class as well,
yeah, it's
globally.
like, and you can put $1 down and get $10. You can put 100K down and they'll give you $1 million. That is phenomenal. Like, you can get a less average annual return, but you're 5 or 10 times in the leverage on it. And the difference between 200K here and $1 million here could be so significant to your wealth position.
And the reason we've chosen this is because we're young. We've got a long career, a long investment journey in front of ourselves, and to be able to leverage into a safe long-term asset like real estate, it's a great way to build wealth. And then as you build wealth and you increase your net worth, you then naturally get more freedom of choice to repurpose those investments. You know, some of our clients that are a bit older and more experienced, you know, they are in a position where they're very diversified. Yeah, they've still got some residential real estate and leverage, but they've also got a big stock portfolio. They've also got commercial real estate as well, where it's like you're getting a better yield, you're getting a better cash flow return, because like you think about like a blue chip property in Sydney, Melbourne or Brisbane that's worth like $1.5 million. Its average rental return is $800 per week, maybe $900 per week. It's a terrible rental yield.
And even if you own it outright, you're only putting 500 of that in the hand.
Exactly, all costs.
You know, a 1.5% yield isn't the reason why we're in this game. We're in this game while you're young, before you're 50, to leverage up. And then to figure out with your financial advisor and accountant and your partner a good use of those funds in the future that's safe. And, you know, there's phenomenal books, just that, like Ray Dalio's book, phenomenal.
Big Debt Crises, that one.
Well, that's a great book too, in terms of how they will
Principles.
stimulate the economy. But, you know, Principles, or even Money Master the Game with Tony Robbins, where Ray's like, well, this is an investment strategy that when you're moving from speculative young blood to retirement phase, like there's some phenomenal ideas on there on how to allocate capital from, you know, the best investors in history, not just in the world, but in history.
Yeah, and some economists and analysts do believe that this like 25-year period from 2025 to 2050, with the continuation of the technological revolution, but the introduction of artificial intelligence and quantum computing, is going to create the biggest boom in asset prices and in the world that we've ever seen, because like it is an exponential growth pattern. And whilst there's a lot of fear there and a lot of jobs will be lost, you know, those jobs will just be repurposed into something different, like has always happened in the past when these things come. But, you know, that also is something that I'm super excited about. Like, I'm so optimistic about the future of technology and AI, and there's going to be challenges, because when we experience change, there's always challenges, but I want to be an early adopter. I want to be somebody that wraps his head around. I'm probably not, because the early adopters are already in it, right? But I'm still wrapping my head around it. I'll be the second wave.
When they went from whale oil to electricity, people had issues. When they went from like horse and carriage to cars, from cars, like when they went from cars to planes, like people always have issues in the transition. Unless you just embrace it, that's how it's always been. Like, it wasn't that long ago that we were mucking around in caves and then we figured out how to grow stuff and how to like keep animals together. Yeah. It's like, it's just...
change is the only constant.
You know, if the size of the global economy was this before the last GFC and now it's this, then by the time we get to the next one, it's going to be 10x bigger, the size of the global money supply. And what's cool is like the Western world has a pretty like good understanding of banking and history and government intervention. And, you know, Ray Dalio's book that you mentioned, Big Debt Crises, looks at, I can't remember, 10 or 15 of the largest crashes in history. And he talks about 4 or 5 levers that you can pull to like re-stimulate an economy. But a lot of that knowledge that we've learned in the West is not being transferred to like the emerging South American, Chinese, African or Indian markets. And so while we might be able to like artificially spike our economies, because some of those economies are so corrupt, there's not that money supply sitting there, there's going to be opportunities, and some of those opportunities will come in forms that we can't even imagine right now.
No, exactly.
Like, imagine how good AI is going to be 20 years from now, what that's going to look like for health, for fitness, for food production, for the economy, for like, you know, are there going to be traders anymore, or are there just going to be programs that trade for you?
A funny story, I was watching a reel of Xi Jinping and Putin talking, and they were translating it, and they were talking about exactly this, like AI and technological revolution and biology. And they were both talking, and they're like, hey, we're probably going to be able to live forever. Like, it was
that's their goal,
that's their goal. Hey, like
megalomaniac or whatever you said.
They're exactly that. But look, it's all going to be good, but there's going to be teething problems that we're all going to have to accept and get used to. And I think like a willingness and a desire to learn and grow and improve and not fight the reality. Like, living on the Sunshine Coast, you talk to a lot of old people that are just so pissed off about the development and the population growth, and like, oh, we want the good old days back.
Gone.
You can't dwell on the past like that. You've just got to live in the moment, do your best to forecast the future and just go, look, it's inevitable. These things are inevitable. Comes back to what I said before. You've got two choices. You can learn and exploit, or you can ignore and get taken advantage of.
I love that so much, man. And I think, everyone listening to this has a growth, education orientated mindset. And I just think, I wish there was more than our mum and a couple of other people listening to it, because I feel like we could save a lot of people from a car crash. In terms of like the stuff, like I'll always want to go back to the nuts and bolts. Like in that rescue phase, which is what Akil calls it, or the recovery phase, which is what Phil calls it, houses stabilize. As you said, the government bails out the banks.
Pull back interest rates.
The banks get rid of all of the bad debts. So this is what Ray Dalio says you can do. You pull back rates, you bring in first home grants. These grants come in many different forms. One of them after in the GFC was the baby boom, like the baby grant, right? And people in Western Sydney were having babies to get 2 to 5K.
Yeah, they're talking about bringing that back because our birth rates are so low.
Yeah, and so they stimulate through housing stuff, but they, like last time solar, another time they did it was training organisations. Right now they're doing it through the NDIS. Like it's a way to get unskilled people into high income jobs, because they know those people will most likely spend almost everything they earn back into the economy. That's why the government was okay during COVID to lend out all this money, because it's like, we will get back most of this within 18 months. And so they do these things. Another thing that they can do is infrastructure's a huge one, right? Like Trump wants to rebuild America, not because he wants to rebuild roads that are 30 years old in America that need a fucking update. It's because he knows that like so much of what they put out there directly stimulates the economy, and most of that money comes back as tax money as well. And then the last thing that Ray said was you can do is tax the wealthiest corporations and individuals. And he's like, but we don't want to look at that one. Like,
I wonder why.
He is one of them. So, there's a lot of things that they can do. But effectively, after houses stabilise, from my understanding of overlaying the Homely data to the last cycle, was that Sydney and Melbourne seemed to do really well first. And then Phil sort of confirmed that markets like London, New York, LA,
Singapore, the big property markets.
Because if you're a government, right, and most of your revenue comes from these, 2 cities in Australia, that's where you focus stimulation on.
Well, it's also these markets are very economically diverse as well. Yeah. Plus, they're more likely tied to the right industry. So like tech, IT and banking. So because there's a big government bailout and because new technology leads us through into the next cycle as well, those cities that have the biggest industries, the biggest corporations occupied or running out of those big cities, naturally you're going to have a quick recovery. Plus, they suffer in the last years leading up. It's like you look at Sydney and you compare it to Brisbane, Perth, Adelaide. Over the last 5 years, it hasn't kept up at all. Neither has Melbourne, and I haven't been tracking it in the United States or in the UK or anything like that, but similarities like market briefs has been indicating in the US, like San Francisco, Chicago, Los Angeles, New York have all been kind of plateauing since COVID, whereas, Texas and Florida and Georgia and parts
secondary
of the Midwest,
markets, right?
parts of the Midwest.
Same as Australia.
Yeah.
So if Sydney and Melbourne lead a cycle out, or New York, then Brisbane's, Austin, Texas's lead the second half of the cycle, right? Because this was Melbourne was really expensive in 2015-16, like the most expensive or unaffordable city in Australia. And all of a sudden, okay, we're not looking at Melbourne anymore. Let's go speculate on Brisbane, Adelaide, Perth, Hobart. oh, hang on, like we forgot about Melbourne. Melbourne looks actually really good again.
Investors are investing.
Yeah.
Investors are looking for value.
Yeah, they're looking for value. So with what's really important, right, is if you look at the chart between 2005 and 2012 for gold and silver, phenomenal spike. So as we get scared, we run into, we look for value, right? Or we look for some sort of stability. And then we those prices went up nuts. I think between that period of time, silver did almost 400%, maybe even more.
That's just crazy.
When we look at what happened, this is very fucking important in the rescue recovery phase. After we're recovered, the sell-off on those assets could drive the price down by 85%. So it's very, 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 very important to, like, if you're in those things, to understand the history and to get the fuck out of the close to the top.
And like, I'll let you go. Sorry. Crypto, we don't know, but then stocks have a really quick recovery. So like, I think one of the reasons why gold struggles is because institutional commercial investors have seen this, 30 to 60% drop in the stock market, and they see blood in the water, and they're like, well, let's sell our bonds, let's sell our cash, let's sell our precious metals, and let's get back into these, these undervalued assets, because when you can buy Google, Amazon, Nvidia, Tesla, all of the biggest and best, what do they call them? The Mag 5 or the Mag 7 now. If you can buy those at 50 cents, 40 cents in the dollar.
Show me.
And then you've also got this technological revolution occurring, and people are adopting that on mass scale. Just like, let's get back into it.
Global digital currency, I'm just calling it.
What I say, CBDC, central based digital currency.
So between 2000, like the bottom of the GFC, I won't add a year, but just go look at the long-term chart, to mid 2012, 100% gain in stocks. Between 12 and 18, another 100% gain. Between 18 and 24, another 100% gain in American stocks. So it's just important to know what's coming. Yeah, ride through the bad bit and get some stuff cheap, but like times that you can't even believe. And the thing is, for most people, they won't feel good until 7 to 10 years after the GFC, and that will be your opportunity time. With crypto, all I can say is a friend of ours in Sydney was a big crypto guy. He and I were always saying, he's like, it's a store of value like gold and silver. I'm like, we'll see. I don't think it's a store of value. I think it's a speculative thing. And he's like,
a lot of hate for that.
Yeah, 100%. That's cool. Like, never sell. Whatever the crypto guys say, never sell.
Yeah, they sell it when it's booming.
So he sort of said that, yeah, utility, non-utility, whatever. My conversation was, I didn't see it as a store of value. He's like, it's a store of value. And I said, well, the cool thing is we're about to go through a mid-cycle slowdown. And in that cycle, it followed the stock market perfectly. So I'm like, okay, it's not a store of value, Damo, anymore. What is it? And then I don't know what it is. Like, I still don't know what it is. It's exciting to see what it will be.
Yeah.
It's so exciting to see what it's going to do for the world. And I can't wait to see what crypto does in this next crash. And I can't wait to see what it ends up being over the next 15 years.
As somebody who has like dabbled in it and is interested in it, like, utopian reality is like, best case scenario is like there is a
$1 million Bitcoin.
Well, not even $1 million Bitcoin, but just more that it's a decentralized system rather than a centralized system. Because if it's centralized, somebody controls the flow of money. If it's decentralized, then we control the flow of money. So that would be best case scenario. And if that does come to fruition, then Bitcoin is a store of value and Bitcoin does stick around. And our only fears then is really like,
the government coming in and taking it.
The internet shutting down, like, we've got bigger problems to worry about than your crypto going to zero if the internet shuts down.
So what would be really, like, let's say just like hypothetically, we're in for a hard time and the system, like I still believe that it was introduced for that reason, the decentralization and the system. Like this was the technology that has changed the game since the last thing, because they're like, fuck these banks that are going to be bailed out by the government and we're all going to lose 50%. Let's create something where they can't touch it. And they still haven't been able to touch the thing. Like, it's still unbelievable. But it's like, let's say that it was also a really, really, whether it was introduced this way or whether the government's just gone, hey, that's a really fucking awesome thing to get us the digital currency, right?
Exactly.
Digital currency would stop a lot of
to give people the confidence to obviously
to go to an American-backed digital currency or a Chinese
global-backed, yeah.
Imagine that'd be fucking
I wouldn't mind it, you know.
Exciting.
I don't know, like, you know, we'll have to wait and see.
I'm really excited to see what happens with all these things. And like, people trade water, people trade titanium, people trade coal, people trade silver, they trade properties, they trade stocks, bonds. They traded Ponzi's back in the old days, you know what I mean? Like, I mean, not Ponzi's, what are they called? Those little flowers?
Oh, I don't know.
Poppies or whatever. But I just think we trade things, and we trade at school. Like, I'm watching my kids swap cards. I'm watching them swap Tarzos. I'm watching them swap little things out of chip packets. Like, we can't help ourselves. And so, of course, crypto is going to be in this beautiful world of like, how cool is it that we have more options than the fucking UK stock market now? Or like, we've got more options than the American housing market. Like, it's really exciting.
Yeah, I think it's good to get prepared. Like, one thing we didn't touch on when like we get to the peak and then into the crash is like some of the signs, just to wrap up the video as well. So based on Phil's work and some investors that we've talked to over the years, you know, the strongest sign is the yield curve inversion. So I believe it's when the 3-month bonds become more valuable than the 10-year bonds.
Yeah, so that short-term bond, you could look at it 3 months or annually. A 1-year bond
becomes worth more than the 10-year.
So basically, Phil said that every time that this has happened for most of history, not all the time, but most of history, within about 18 months, we're in a recession.
Yeah.
It could be a technical one where the economy just goes down, that's fine. Or it could be like a GFC or a Great Depression.
The next is like real estate investment trust, because it's a real estate crash. It's not it's a global financial crisis, is what it was called last time, but it's too much debt. And so those real estate investment trusts, these institutional investors, have so much skin in the game. They've got so much money invested in the land markets that when they start to decline in value, that's telling you that like the peak has been, and we are now moving into the decline. And I think from there, he said it's like 3 to 6 months from when that actually occurs.
Yep. So what generally happens at the top, which is why the real estate investment trust is like a canary in the coal mine for like the yield curve is these guys aren't looking to buy one home like you and I might before the end of the year. These guys are looking to buy, particularly in America, like monster tracts of land and then develop them all out. Their credit, so the credit is starting to squeeze at the top before the car crash happens. And so the credit squeezing, it's like, hey, this company that would normally, a real estate investment trust might have a developer in there that normally does 10,000 homes a year in America somewhere, like maybe it's in Texas. That guy went to go get his next line of credit and they said, no, you're not borrowing any more money. And on top of that, we're calling back in this thing.
Yeah.
And so they stop. It's not that their business models are completely trashed. It's just that they're not as profitable. And so the stock market's always forecasting 9 months in advance. That's what it's doing. It's trying to see what's coming based on current news, the direction, and people start moving away from the real estate investment trust because as businesses, they're just no longer profitable. And like you said before, the market's always seeking value. So it's a really good early indicator.
The world's tallest buildings as well, the announcements of these, or like the biggest, tallest, longest, deepest, like that's what Phil says. So, you know, you got that project in Saudi Arabia, the Lion, that was announced like a while ago, and they've broken soil on that, whether or not it'll actually happen.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I talked to a girl who's an engineer on it a few years ago. Don't know if she's got a job anymore or not though. And then you've got like in Australia, it wasn't a huge one, but like one in Adelaide that's going up as well was an announcement. There was one in I can't remember which state of America, but it was like one of the southern states where they had a building that got approved and it didn't have a height limit on it. They were like, we can just keep building until we choose to stop building.
Whoa.
Yeah, exactly. And so, and then you've got the one in Saudi or
One of those
Dubai,
ones.
where there's like one that's going to be bigger than the Burj Khalifa as well. So all of these, projects that are getting announced, and these things were announced years ago, and it's like a lot of them break soil or are released at the top of the cycle. And in Australia, last time around in about 2004, roughly, was when they announced the big tower on the Gold Coast that became the biggest building in
I
Australia.
remember there were two there, Q1 and Seoul.
Yeah.
And I remember being around there at that point, and they were completed and empty.
They
like
were selling them for
50% of them or something.
They were selling them for like $1 million off the plan. And then when, it got released in 2008, 2009, people was buying them for like $400,000 to $600,000.
Yeah, which is probably the epic value, like at that time, for someone who just wanted to
It's a
live
lot
there.
of negative equity. And that's why it's like, you really don't want to be buying speculative assets at the moment. Like, you don't want to be buying into a high-rise apartment that's due for completion in 1 to 4 years from now. You don't want to be buying in a large townhouse development. You don't want to be buying a piece of land on the outskirts of a city or in a regional town that the land hasn't even registered yet, and you're 2-3 years away from getting the keys for the property. It's like, fundamentals matter at this point. Like, do not speculate, do not over leverage, do not chase quick money. Like, we sat down with one of our, favorite clients recently, and he was looking at doing a short-term project, and we ran the numbers for him, and we're like, look, I just don't think it's viable at the moment. Like, the short-term gains aren't there because property values are so high, interest rates are so high, construction costs are so high right now that there's no short-term profit. So you just need to do what's worked, and that's buying good quality pieces of land in the most undervalued suburbs in, the markets that have historically fared well during these periods. Like, that's why I'm going to Melbourne. It's like I can buy a joint down there that, is like 40 to 60% more expensive today than it was 10 years ago, where like most properties are sort of 80 to 120% more expensive today than they were 10 years ago. So I'm buying at a massive discount. It's like, there's a bit more stability there. Like, there's a bit more confidence there as well. So, the harsh thing is, because there's a lot of greed, there's a lot of optimism, there's a lot of delusion at the moment, people are wanting to go chase that shiny object. But, that's where you're going to get unstuck, unfortunately. So it's just like, trust your gut, trust your intuition, trust history, and do the research. Like, don't get sold into something because you're just got that FOMO and you just want to get a piece of the pie. Just long-term fundamentals is super, super important at the moment.
Man, that was a beautiful way to wrap this up. Like, I just was like just listening to that going, fuck yeah, bro.
Yeah.
Like, it's very simple. Just don't overdo it and do the good stuff, and look for value.
Yeah.
Like, what investors are always doing, what we always do. Look for value where others aren't seeing value right now. And as far as I can see, that's Darwin and Melbourne. That's all I know. And I'm a Melbourne guy. I'm not a Darwin guy. So I'm liking the look of properties that would be 850K in Brisbane for 600 grand in Melbourne. That's a nice thing to be able to do.
Yeah.
And that would be 1.2 to 1.5 in Sydney. Like, it's nice when you can get a great market below what other markets are worth.
We just bought a property for a client in West Melbourne, and I was doing a bit of research on it. This property was bought unrenovated for $655,000 in April of 2022. Our client just bought it in August of 2025, the renovated version of it, for $675,000.
That's incredible. I love that. So it's theoretically cheaper, effectively, than it was 3 years
Factor in
ago.
inflation.
Yeah.
Factor in the renovation.
Yeah.
It's cheaper than it was any time in the past, really. So, like, there's just some pretty crazy ones. Like, one of the guys that reached out recently is like, tell us about your success stories in Melbourne. And it's like, well, there's one for you right there. But like, because we've only just started buying there, because it only just stopped declining in value and started increasing in value. You know, we don't have, it's not like Brisbane or Perth or Townsville or, you know, Sydney, where you've got all of these success stories. It's like most of them are actually sad stories in Melbourne over the last 5 years.
Yeah, and it's like I remember buying in Sydney or Wollongong, Goldie, Sunny Coast, Brisbane, or different pockets of Brisbane. There's periods where you're getting stuff like so far fundamentally below replacement value today, or places that are completely renovated and they're only 25 grand above a complete shitbox, but there's 150, 200 grand of work, and they're what I would deem success stories now. And it's like our clients won't understand that, but I understand it. Like when I see, I'm not just going Melbourne as a basket of goods, 600 suburbs, I'm going, we've got probably 16 suburbs that we're obsessed with. And within those 16 suburbs, there's property types that we would not touch, and there's property types that look like value, and then there's pockets of those suburbs. And it's like, it's just, there is an art and a science to investing in property. And it's like, the more I've learned through this cycle from all of the stuff we've done for ourselves and our clients, the more I just keep going back to fundamentals. Like I really did.
The boring way is the way.
Fucking everything that I've done that was like more exciting has just ended up costing me so much. Like fundamentals just work.
They do.
There's a reason 600 to 1,000 square meter blocks are the ones that crank in value. There's a reason why a suburb that's done 4% a year instead of 10% a year does better in the next 10 years. There's a time and a place for Brisbane, Perth, Sydney and Melbourne. And if you don't know when it is, then you'll be rushing into the wrong market at the very top of it, because that's what feels like it's just never going to end.
That's it.
But I've loved this potty, man.
Wrap it up. It's scary to talk about this sort of stuff sometimes, but like at the same time, you know, coming back to that saying I said earlier, like you want to be the warrior in a garden, you don't want to be a gardener in a war. So do your research, folks.
G'day guys, my name's Ben and I'm the director here at Pumped on Property, and I just want to say a massive thank you for watching our content today. Now, if you're thinking about buying an investment property in the next 3 to 12 months, then the team and I would love to offer you a one-on-one strategy session. In that session, we can talk about exactly where you are right now, where you'd like to be longer term, and we can deeply educate you on the Australian market. And then you can take that information and go and absolutely smash it on your own, or potentially become one of a small number of clients that we work with each week. To book your session, all you have to do is go to www.pumpedonproperty.com and click that book your free strategy session button. But either way, we wish you all the best on your journey as an investor to financial freedom.